Moon Knight is soon going to be joining the Marvel Cinematic Universe with his own solo series on Disney+. And this has really got people talking about the character, particularly in regards to what he is capable of, especially among people who don't really know that much about the character. Well, one of the best ways of getting to know what a superhero is able to do is to analyze how they stack up against other comic characters. So let's do that. Let's take a look at a handful of comic heroes from both Marvel and DC and see who I think he'd come out on top against. Whoa, you are just begging for some rage down in those comments. Actually, oddly attractive commentator, I hope that everything can stay civil. This is all basically conjecture after all, and really just meant to be fun. Anyways, without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it. I am starting this video off with a bit of a softball admittedly, but let's go ahead and take a look at how Moon Knight would beat Daredevil. In the comics, these two usually find themselves working together as opposed to against each other. As two largely street-level heroes operating within the wider New York City area, it's natural that they would eventually cross paths. However, if they ever do find themselves at odds, I really don't think it's gonna go Matt Murdock's way. I can say that with some degree of confidence, because it's already happened. In Moon Knight Volume 1, issue number 13, Moon Knight was tracking the Jester, hoping he would lead him to an even bigger target. At the same time, Daredevil was chasing down the Jester, hoping to catch him for his crimes. Not wanting to lose out on the larger target, Moon Knight intercepted Daredevil, and the two had a rather quick scuffle before they eventually teamed up, as you would expect in a situation like this. Now on the surface, this fight really does look like it ends in a draw. Which, I mean, yeah, sort of. Both heroes definitely get in some solid licks. However, it's worth noting that in this situation, both heroes were approaching this fight in very different ways. Daredevil didn't have any idea who Moon Knight was, so to him, he was being attacked by some unknown assailant. So presumably, he wasn't holding anything back, at least not any more than he does against any other opponent. Moon Knight, however, knew who Daredevil was, and didn't actually want to hurt him, so he was holding back quite a bit. And the fight ended with MK knocking DD off of his feet, hitting him hard in the face with his weapon. Now imagine how that could have gone down if MK was attacking at 100%. They might be on relatively even footing in regards to combat prowess, but Moon Knight has the power of Khonshu the Moon God behind him, granting him powers beyond that of a mortal man. Daredevil has his heightened senses, yes, but his strength and durability are still that of a human being, albeit one in peak physical form. So I think it goes without saying that Moon Knight is taking the W in this fight. Daredevil's just lucky that they are, for the most part, on the same side. While I was planning this video out, I figured I should probably include some opponents for Moon Knight who were themed around the sun, since, you know, opposites and all that. One little problem though. Most of these solar-themed heroes out there are either crazy powerful, or there just isn't a lot of information about them, so it was hard to make an argument for MK beating them. That is, until I remembered that Sunboy existed. Sunboy is a hero from DC Comics, who can harness solar energy that he generates within his own body and direct it as a sort of energy blast. With this, he is capable of generating immense amounts of heat, enough to melt pretty much every kind of metal in existence. And that presumably includes the super metals from the Marvel Universe, such as carbonadium and adamantium, of which a good portion of Moon Knight's equipment is made. So okay, it looks like Sunboy's got this one in the bag. Well, incredibly handsome commenter, not really actually. See, Sunboy suffers from an extreme case of nyctophobia, which, in case you don't know what that is the fear of the dark. Now normally, Sunboy's powers can largely offset this, as he can just generate some fire or something to light up the area around it. However, you cannot tell me that Moon Knight, a hero powered by a pact with the god of the moon, couldn't in some way utilize Sunboy's fear of the dark against him, especially if Sunboy doesn't know it's coming. It'll be a tough fight for Moon Knight, no doubt about it, but if put in the right circumstances and given the opportunity to plan properly, I think MK could hit him hard and fast and end it rather quickly. Come on, this is a video about who Moon Knight could beat, not who Moon Knight would beat in every possible situation. So, I think this is still valid. Having Thor on here might feel sort of out of left field and really unbelievable, but just you wait, cause I'm gonna get even crazier with it before the end of this list. I think you know what's coming. So the Asgardian god of thunder, as I'm sure you know at this point, is arguably one of, if not the most powerful Avenger there is, regardless of what version of the character we're talking about. Being an Asgardian has granted him numerous benefits, ranging from super strength to enhanced durability. And all of that is further heightened by his use of Mjolnir, his famous hammer that when wielded by others, grants them the power of Thor. As long as they're worthy, of course. You know, that nebulous concept that isn't really all that well defined and seems to change nearly constantly to fit whatever the writers need it to. Regardless of whatever makes someone worthy at the moment, Moon Knight has never really been shown to be someone who can pick up the hammer, at least not traditionally speaking. In Avengers Volume 8, issue number 33, Moon Knight was beginning a bit of a rampage, taking out members of the Avengers and their close allies, all because his god Khonshu willed him to do so. At one point, Thor came down and attacked him, intending to put an end to his actions. However, Moon Knight wound up teaching Thor a bit of a lesson, when he revealed to the God of Thunder that, because his hammer is made of Uru, which is a material forged from the remains of one of the first celestial bodies, technically makes it moon rocks, meaning that MK sort of had control over it. And by sort of, I mean he was able to levitate it and then throw it back at Thor, sending him flying with very little trouble actually. He then took the hammer and used it to punch a literal hole in Mephisto's chest, which is just about the most metal thing in all of comics. So basically what I'm saying is that I don't have to come up with hypothetical situations where Moon Knight could beat Thor, because on the page, he already did it. He managed to use Mjolnir against its proper owner without having to be worthy. That's saying something. Now, yes, this was during a period of time where his powers granted to him by Khonshu were particularly heightened, but still, I think it counts. Because honestly, what's to stop him from being blessed in such a way again, really at any time? A lot of things if you've read the story arc, but that's beside the point. Speaking of that time when Moon Knight took out a bunch of Avengers, I might as well mention one of the others that went down during that whole situation. And there were a lot of others. But to stop this list from just becoming a list of people that he beat up during the Age of Khonshu event, I'll just include one more. In this case, it's Iron Fist. Having Iron Fist after someone like Thor on this list, you might be thinking to yourself, man, if he can beat Thor, of course he's gonna be able to take on Iron Fist. But here's the thing. This fight took place before he had taken out any of the other heroes. So he was at his weakest point power level wise, basically for the entire story arc. He was as close to baseline Moon Knight that we saw for like 4 or 5 issues. When Moon Knight took out Iron Fist, things were stacked pretty solidly in Danny Rand's favor. Moon Knight went to Kunlun to face off with Rand, without the use of any of his gear beyond a single Ankh and his mask. So, in this situation, he was facing off against Iron Fist on his home turf without any protection or advantages granted to him by armor or equipment. And yet, Moon Knight was able to take him on. Why is that? Well, it's probably a combination of things. First and foremost is the fact that in this situation, Iron Fist wasn't really expecting much. He knew who Moon Knight was, unlike Daredevil during that first entry, but he didn't exactly expect MK to strike. So catching him off guard could have given Moon Knight a little bit of an edge. But it's also worth noting that Moon Knight is a highly trained combatant, perhaps even one of the best martial artists in the Marvel Universe. So he could presumably stand against Iron Fist fairly well. But winning? Well, that comes down to the enhancements that Khonshu has granted Moon Knight, giving him greater durability than most normal humans, which explains how he's able to take powerful hits like this one. And then there is that Ankh that I mentioned, which allowed him to absorb Iron Fist's powers, which certainly came in handy. In fact, those Ankhs did a lot for him during this entire story arc in regards to taking on heroes that he really had no right standing up against. Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Ghost Rider. He went through a lot of heroes. So there you go. A little bit of ammo for you if you ever get into any Moon Knight versus Heroes discussions in the near future. So there are a lot of telepaths in the Marvel Universe, many of them falling under the designation of mutants. Not all of them are, but the mutant label does apply pretty effectively to the noteworthy ones. Either way, I'm largely going to loop all of them into this one section here, because honestly, Moon Knight's ability to take them on is equal amongst all of them, for the most part. Fighting a telepath can be incredibly tricky, especially someone such as Professor Xavier, who has been shown to be able to literally go into someone's mind and shut them down completely. But as you would expect, Moon Knight does have some pretty serious defenses against this kind of attack. And as it turns out, those defenses also serve as some pretty potent offenses. So Mark Spector here, in addition to being a complete and total badass, is also someone who suffers from some extreme mental illness. Though he had some signs of it when he was younger, it's largely a consequence of him being the chosen avatar of Khonshu, as he has developed several different split personalities that each seem to represent the 4 aspects of the moon god. His connection to this god has also made him privy to sights so mind-boggling that it has fractured his psyche. On the page, his mental illness is described as being so powerful that it's basically magic, which I mean, yeah, kind of. This madness has largely granted him the ability to resist many forms of telepathic attack, mostly as a side effect, but it's helpful nonetheless. However, when he allows someone to actually get in, to actually see what he's got knocking around in that old noggin of his, the results are often not pretty. Remember in Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, when Deadpool let Charles Xavier into his head, and the sheer force of what's going on in there broke Xavier's mind and left him in a vegetative state? Yeah, it'd probably go something like that with Moon Knight. Only, you know, this is his regular state of mind. This guy's brain has been touched by an ancient entity beyond the scope of normal human understanding. It would be like if you tried to read the mind of someone who met Cthulhu or something along those lines. Madness. Pure and simple. So whatever the number is in the title of this video, go ahead and increase it by multitudes. Every single telepath in comics belongs on this list. Regardless of what publisher or IP or even genre they belong to, if they try to read Moon Knight's mind, it's probably not going to end well for them. So now we come to this. The big cheese. The big entry that I'm sure many of you were expecting me to talk about this entire video. No, it's not Batman. I'm sure most of you are waiting for me to talk about Batman, but not right now. This entry is about Superman. Superman is the bar next to which all other superheroes are measured. He is the character that springs to mind when people think about superheroes. He is basically a god among men. But as you've seen in this video already, even actual gods fall at the hands of Moon Knight. Whoa, 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 whoa. I do not believe for a second that Moon Knight is going to be able to beat a Kryptonian like Kal-El. No way, dude. He's going to get destroyed. All right, okay, calm down, Drop Dead Sexy commenter. Let me explain. Most people are aware of Superman's largest weakness, that being the fact that chunks of his former home planet that have been rendered green and glowing by cosmic radiation are capable of weakening him and even downright killing him dead if exposed to enough of it for a long enough period of time. However, that is not the Man of Steel's only weakness, despite what some people might think. One major one is his vulnerability to magic. You see, despite being the Man of Steel, certain wavelengths of energy are able to penetrate his defenses and cause him harm. One such wavelength just happens to be the one that a good amount of magical spells operate on. Which that right there has got to be the first ever recorded instance of someone managing to make magic sound boring. Anyways, while not generally defined as magic within comics at least, Khonshu's divine blessing could be magical in nature. I mean, in some places outside of comic books, divine powers are treated as a form of magic, such as within Dungeons & Dragons, or really any mainstream RPG. So, that could give Moon Knight an advantage over the last son of Krypton. There is also the fact that Superman requires exposure to the radiation from a yellow sun to recharge his batteries, as it were. Maybe Khonshu could help MK out by having the moon block out the sun during their fight for a little while. Might not really help that much since, you know, Superman can fly into space past the moon's orbit, but you know, it's worth at least trying. Finally, we've come to it. The entry that everyone was waiting to hear about. The Fist of Khonshu versus the Dark Knight of Gotham. How does Moon Knight win this fight? He doesn't. Batman wins. Because he's Batman. Listen, I don't make the rules, that's just the way it is. It's like a universal constant, basically. The sun rises in the morning, sets in the evening, you're born, you live, then you die, and Batman always wins. Now, I could sit here and talk about how Moon Knight and Batman are fairly evenly matched in terms of tech and training and all of that stuff, and how Moon Knight should have the advantage because he has actual superpowers that would aid him in a one-on-one brawl. But it doesn't matter, cause Batman. You don't like it? Take it up with DC, who made him easily the most overpowered character in all of fiction. I love Batman, don't get it twisted, but that is the truth. So sorry, MK, this is just not a fight that you're allowed to win. But hey, you managed to take out a god and a half, so that's worth something. Hey everybody, I'm John Aljets. I made this video and I want to know what you think. What character from comics do you think Moon Knight could beat? Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, or go ahead and shoot me a response over on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to CBR for more great videos just like this in the future.